Hey everybody, Notorious here. Welcome back to my channel. Grateful as always to have your viewership. In this episode, I'm going to do a quick but thorough review of a brand new climbing rope that I bought called the Sasquatch Max by Sterling. So let's get right to it. So here it is, the Sasquatch Max by Sterling. Quick backstory. I bought this rope because I needed a rope that would be specifically great for moving rope systems. And that's because I climb almost exclusively SRS. And so most of my ropes are usually between 11 and 11.8 millimeters in diameter, and they all have at least 32 to 48 strand covers. So they're also super static, and they don't have spliced ends. They all have sewn terminations because you can't easily splice a 32 or 48 strand rope. So I needed something that could be spliced and something that would work well in a moving rope system. And I came across the Sasquatch Max by Sterling. Let's talk about its specs. It is a half-inch diameter rope, which for you non-Americans is 12.8 millimeters in diameter. And it has a MBS of 7,868 pounds, which is roughly 35.1 kilonewtons. So it's a very strong rope. And elongation at 540 pounds is 3.4%. So it's not super static, and its weight per 100 feet is 7.5 pounds. So it's a little on the heavy side, which can be a downside depending on the length that you buy. But for the most part, most ropes tend to be around 6 pounds per 100 feet. So it's not terrible. And the sheath percentage is 72%. The sheath material is polyester. So this outer portion here, the colored portion, is made out of polyester. And the core material, which is inside, which we can't see, is made out of nylon. And its working load limit in pounds is 787 pounds. So that's pretty substantial. And its working load limit in kilonewtons is 3.5 kilonewtons. Another great thing about this rope is that it can easily be spliced. And here we have the splice, and it is really streamlined and much better choice than a sewn termination for this kind of rope. Again, I needed this for MRS, and so the reason I needed a splice termination is because I will be using it with a lot of ring-to-ring friction savers as well as pulley savers, and those require that the rope easily fit through a small ring or through the interior of a pulley. And you can't do that with a sewn termination at all. So that's why this was the best and only option for a true moving rope system rope. When I received the rope, this splice termination had around it this really thick sort of plastic wrap, and it was extremely bulky. And at first, I wasn't sure what to think about it because it was so thick and bulky. I'll pull up a picture right now that it actually was making it basically impossible for me to pull it through the small ring of my friction saver, meaning that I thought I almost just bought a splice that was not going to work with my ring to ring until a good friend of mine, Caveman, told me that those wraps, the one you see on the picture, the big black bulky wrap that they send when you buy these ropes, that they send on the splice termination, they're actually not a critical component. They're actually just required by, I think, European law for them to do that in order to show it's almost like a certification, a proof of, that it was spliced by, in this case, I believe it was Rope Logic, and that it was done on such and such date. And it's like the tag on your mattress, okay? And I don't know if removing it voids some kind of warranty, but I really don't care because I've never had to, return a rope. I'm not even sure you can return ropes. So Caveman told me that I could just carefully remove it. And so that's what I did. I took a pair of scissors and I very carefully cut it off. And as a result, I'll remove the picture now. You can see what I have here. And according to my friend, removing that label does not affect the structural integrity of the splice. If it's properly spliced, as shown here, then it will maintain full strength, and really that tag is just sort of like a certification that's required by laws in certain regions of the world. So it's a huge annoyance because you have to be very careful taking it off because you don't want to cut any of the strands. In fact, I did nick 2 of the strands and had to put a little bit of super glue on them to make sure they don't fail. But overall, it was a success, and you can see that this splice looks beautiful. And without that big, bulky black thing, now it slips beautifully through all my devices, and I love it. So for anyone who didn't know that, who was living under a rock like I was, as far as those certification bands, now you know that it's not going to affect the structural integrity or the strength or the ability of your splice to function if you remove that. And in fact, it is my recommendation that if you have a splice that came with one of those, that you do remove it. Just be very careful. So enough about that. This rope, again, is 12.8 millimeters in diameter, or half an inch, and that means it's really thick. And I love that because that makes it really easy on my hands, and especially when you're doing a lot of like hip thrusting and maneuvers where you need to be yanking on a rope, it's nice to have one that is thick and it's not going to tire out your hand. So I've thoroughly tested this rope already, which is why I'm able to give you a review on it. And I've tested it in a closed system. I've tested it in a open system with a split tail, and I've tested it with a hitch climber setup. And I actually have a video coming out in the next few weeks all about the hitch climber system, where I do the demonstration using this rope. And the one thing that I struggled with initially with this rope is that it's very sleek, the texture, because it only has 16 strands, and because of the grade of polyester that they've chosen to use, it's a very, like, it's silky smooth. And that's, nice on the hands, but not so nice when you're trying to pull, do some hip thrusting or pull on the rope to raise yourself up, and it's slipping through your gloves or your hands. So I was having trouble. You'll see in the same video that I just referenced, where I was struggling to do some climbing with the hitch climber setup because the rope was actually slipping through my gloves, and I was wearing gloves that had what's that material? A nitrile coating on them. So that's sort of a bummer. I think maybe I need to get some better gloves, or maybe over time this rope will become less slippery. But that was an immediate downside. But thankfully, typically, I don't do a lot of MRS until I'm already up in the tree. I will access a tree using SRS because it's so much faster and more efficient. And then I will do my climbing sometimes with, a hitch climber setup, or, a open split tail setup or something similar, using a rope like this. And that's really what I needed it for. And so I won't be doing a lot of hip thrusting with it. It's more for just moving up and down in, dense foliage with where there are a lot of limbs to help you hang on and lift yourself up. And yeah, I think you understand what I'm saying. So I just wanted to point out, though, that this is a very slick rope. So to keep that in mind, it could have been just the fact that my gloves are very well used. So I don't know, just something to consider. Another great thing about this rope is that because it is within the 11 to 13 millimeter diameter range, and because it is 16 strand, and it's very well woven, and because it is so static, this rope works great for SRS and MRS. So I messed around using this rope with my rope wrench and with my foot ascender and knee ascender, and it works great. I had no problems. It actually made for a pretty easy climb because, doing the hand over hand as I was rope walking up, because of the thickness, made it really nice to hold on to. And the fact that my foot ascender and knee ascender fit right on there, had no problem with those working with it. And my rope wrench worked beautifully with it. I had to make a slight adjustment with the bollard at the top, simply because I'm used to climbing slightly thinner ropes, but it worked really well. I haven't tried it with my Rope Runner Pro, but honestly, I don't even think it's worth trying because it probably wouldn't work very well That's just me speculating. I don't know that for sure. I just know that pretty much all the ropes that are recommended for use with the Rope Runner Pro are at least 24 strand ropes or more, 24 to 48 strand ropes that are super static. But it might work. I really don't know. I guess I'd have to try it. But with rope wrenches, they're really forgiving, and they can pretty much run on anything, like pretty much anything, even down to like 12 strand probably. But that might be a little extreme. But I do know that originally the rope wrench was said to work the best on 16 to 24 strand ropes. So it worked beautifully. Yeah, enough said on that. So just so you know, you can use this rope for SRS, and it's just a joy to use that way. Finally, what's really great about this rope is its good hand. It has good hand, which means it has really good knotability. So, if I just tie a run-of-the-mill bowline for you guys, you can see that it really clamps down. See that? It's not all loose and floppy, and it's not moving at all. So it really works well with knots, and that's something that I love about any rope. I really always look for ropes that have great knotability. And finally, we're going to do a quick test for all of you who climb with closed systems still in a moving rope setup. So hold on 1 minute, I just gotta set it up. So let's see if the tail of this rope will lock onto itself if I use the tail to tie a regular 4-wrap Blake's hitch around it. And that'll be an interesting test because this is a very slippery rope and I am curious. So all right, so we've got our 4-wrap Blake's, and let's dress it and set it. And here is the moment of truth. It holds. It 100% holds. And if I pull on it, it looks like it would tend pretty nicely, and that it would respond to breaking it. And yeah, it definitely holds very strongly, so that's actually kind of surprising to me. But considering it's a 16 strand rope and it's very malleable, I guess I shouldn't be as surprised as I am. So that wraps up my review for the Sterling Sasquatch Max 1/2-inch climbing rope. I hope you've enjoyed it. If you did, hit that like button. Don't forget to subscribe, and be sure to check out my channel for more hitch how-tos, knot tutorials, and climbing videos. Thanks so much for watching. Bye.